to inspect it.
Hello and welcome back to Paranormal Perspectives. My name's Stan, and today we have quite an exciting episode. We're speaking to author Brad here, Brad Burkholder. Have I pronounced that correctly? Is that okay?
That's correct.
Yes, thank you for being here. It's quite exciting to speak to you.
Thank you for having me.
It's quite an exciting time for you, I imagine, because I know that your book released just a few days ago, Where the Spirit Led.
That's true.
How does it feel?
Different. It feels different. Yeah, I've known for many years that I would write the book, and then I did write it a little more than a year ago, and submitted it around, and Sixth Books picked it up, and I'm very fortunate.
So yeah, it's quite a fascinating story, ultimately about your first connections with what we call the paranormal, and I quite relate to your story because initially starts out with you in high school, kind of feeling maybe a bit disconnected and not quite finding your place. But it's kind of through your beautiful poetry as well. I read some of your poetry; it's so beautifully done.
Thank you.
It's kind of through poetry, it begins to kind of help you to blossom. And I know about your initial kind of experience where you saw some sort of a spirit at the end of your bed as well, and that seemed to be like the beginning. And that obviously spurred on like this whole big almost adventure, really, where you seem to connect with this entity. Am I correct in saying, is it Ramoth or Ramoth?
Ramoth.
Ramoth. Okay, I'll make sure I say that right. And that's fascinating because I've spoken to a number of different mediums, people of all different walks of life who have managed to connect with these entities that sometimes we can't explain where they come from, what they are, but they seem to be there as an additional level of knowledge and guidance. And it's just fascinating. I've had a connection myself with something in particular years ago, but this isn't really all about me. This is really about you tonight, really. And but yeah, this is quite an exciting book, and I'd love to know, Brad, but before we kind of go into the details, people that are watching this episode maybe don't know much about you as an author, and of course the book itself just yet. So who is Brad, basically? What excites you? Like, what kind of brings passion to your life?
Well, I gravitated toward writing poetry in high school. I've been a lifelong poet, actually a student of poetry. I majored in English in college, and then afterward I went to 2 graduate programs, both in creative writing. Most of my life I've taught college English. I'm retired now. While I did that teaching, I also operated a farm. First, I grew Christmas trees. After that, I became a horse breeder. I'm retired from everything now, and I sit around and write. When I'm not reading, I'm writing. When I'm not doing that, I'm online just checking stuff out. But yeah, that's pretty much what most of the time my life is really boring. The book is about...
I wouldn't say that.
Well, most of the time it is. The book is about that part of my life that has not been boring. And that began in 1997 when I booked a reading with a trance channel whose name was Yvonne. When I went to meet with her, she went into a trance, and the entity Ramoth came through. Ramoth immediately identified himself as being of the light and representing God. He began talking about Jesus almost immediately, which answered some questions that were lingering in my mind. But he seemed to anticipate a lot of my questions. He knew that I was there because of a problematic relationship that I was in at the time. And eventually, actually, the second time I went to him, I learned that my relationship problem was a holdover from previous lives when I'd had a previous relationship, and a troubling one, with the same soul. And so, and it turns out that I was able to look into those lives and find out a good deal about myself in those lives and about this woman that I was in relationship with. I've since, after about 2 or 3 years with Ramoth, we resolved the relationship. We went separate ways. I ended up marrying the channel, Yvonne, and we were immensely happy for many, many years. There came a point in 2023 when we realized that we had to go separate ways. We're still best friends, and I still turned to her for readings with Ramoth. So I've been his student since 1997.
Wow, it's quite a beautiful story, because I got to that point of the book as well where you described meeting this channel and almost loving them in all sorts of different ways, really. It's almost like, almost a soulmate kind of relationship, because soulmates don't always tend to be just in a relationship. They tend to be in and out of their lives always and helping each other in that way or form. That's quite a beautiful thing, really. And I resonate with that in many different ways as well. But
Yeah.
I just love the way the book's written. It's so grounded, but you can tell you have a lot of passion for the things that you do, and it's quite a nice build-up at the beginning. I think it's very kind of sweet, really. But I was going to ask you about Ramoth, really. So it seems to be that Ramoth sought you out. Is that right? Would you say it that way?
It doesn't appear that way, but then there's the surface that we see, and then there's the reality behind that. We beings on Earth we're confined to 5 senses. We have only 5 ways to perceive the reality around us. Ramoth apparently has more senses than that. He sees things from a different perspective. And I've known many of his clients. Most of them have come to him for things like help with relationships, but also with business problems, financial problems, and things of that nature. A few of us have looked into more philosophical things, and which is not to say that I haven't sat around with Ramoth and discussed sports, which he knows all about. But
I like that.
But yeah, it's been a wonderful relationship and a very learning relationship. I've changed a great deal since 1997, and I much prefer the person I am now to the person I was before then. I think I've matured a great deal.
That's beautiful, really. So I wonder if it might be that maybe you knew each other in a past life, maybe that essentially could be a friend just there on the outside ready to guide you.
Ramoth?
Ramoth, yeah.
Yeah, according to Ramoth, we have had some lives together. And I know that Ramoth, Yvonne, and I were among the Israelites that fled Egypt with Moses. So I've been acquainted with Ramoth ever since then, if not before.
So that's where the connection with Jesus comes in, about Ramoth speaking about that kind of belief, and so that makes sense, because
he tells me that he actually was acquainted with Jesus in that life.
So he was literally there at the beginning, a guide directly from the past, and that's fascinating, really. So would you say you were a religious person before you spoke to Ramoth?
I would say that I gave up on religion when I was about the time I completed high school. So by the time I was 18, I felt that religion itself probably wasn't sufficient to its own purpose. I floundered around for a while. I was looking for a connection with God. I just didn't find it in church. And so when I got into that problematic relationship was one of the luckiest things that ever happened to me, because it led me to Ramoth. And you asked earlier, did Ramoth bring me to him? I think so, in a way. I would never say that isn't the case. I would just say that I can't explain exactly how it's the case. But yes, I believe that.
That makes sense. So, yeah, I wonder if, in future lives, could you be teaching Ramoth in some way or form? I think you may have a lot of wisdom behind you.
I cannot imagine that. Ramoth is a pretty sharp dude. I don't think I'm nearly as evolved as Ramoth. Millennia from now, maybe I will be.
I think it's beautiful because, I have a spirit guide myself that I've been trying to work on the last few years, getting to know a bit more. And this particular spirit guide is very good at saying just the right word at just the right time. It's good at releasing just a tiny bit of information, and there's times in my life where it's literally saved my life, where it's warned me of danger before it's approached, where I've taken a different path just before it's happened. And it seems to be one of knowledge, of sharing knowings. And I even remember my spirit guide from a past life. It's the times of, like, I wouldn't say ancient Greece, something similar to it, though, where we would meet in a place near the sea. It's almost like a Parthenon kind of thing, but maybe not quite Greek, though, but a place to discuss and debate almost philosophy and different things. And I feel like at some point maybe that person was my teacher at some point. I'm still the student today, who knows? But either way, it's helped me through my life in many different ways. So you'd be surprised how many people have these connections with these people. But it sounds like Ramoth in particular is very, very, very advanced. So now you're very lucky.
I think so. I do think so. Yeah. And I think I was very fortunate to have, to have linked up with him. There are several of us who have been more seriously students of Ramoth rather than merely clients of Yvonne. And he's had a very positive influence on the lives of all of us. There are about, including Yvonne, there are 5 of us who have particularly been students of Ramoth.
Wow, that's incredible. God, I wish I knew about this guy. Does he have an online course? I wonder. But still, like, to have that opportunity to learn from like something so advanced is so special. So, is there a particular part of the book, like part of the story, that you'd like to share with us, if that's okay? Like one part that you think is quite special, just to give people a taster of like what's to come.
The book covers many topics, and it primarily covers about 3 or 4 years from the time that I began going to Ramoth, and then he put together a group of 5 people, which included myself and Yvonne, and 1 woman and 2 other men. He sent us to England on I think you could call it a vision quest. It was an amazing period of time when the 5 of us were there. We kept having these deja vu experiences. We revisited places where we had lived and been in past lives, past centuries. All 5 of us had a connection to King Arthur at one point, and some of us were involved in the life of William Wallace, the Scottish insurrectionist. We were, one of our group was William the Conqueror. It was just very interesting because so much of history seemed to be encapsulated in this group of people who were close to Ramoth.
Okay, so the journey you went on were to visit previous students of Ramoth in a different country. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. He said he encouraged the 5 of us to get together, arrange for a trip. We all received information on where we should go when we got there. That came to us in dreams. I remember seeing in my dream, I saw Ramoth standing with a map on an easel. He had a stick in his hand and he was pointing out places that we needed to go. One was the village Castle Combe, one was Bath, and one was Stonehenge. And we did go to those 3 places as well as some others.
It's interesting that he spoke about those particular places, or led you to those particular places, because, of course, Stonehenge is renowned for being a very spiritual place. A lot of Druids will go there at certain times. Especially, the summer solstice recently, where people go there at sunrise and just have this celebration together. Mm-hmm. I've yet to do that. Christine, who's usually on my podcast, she's a medium. She's been there so many times, and she's really annoyed at me for not going there up till recently, because it's not far from where I live, actually, to be fair. So I need to make it my mission to do that soon. But there's a lot of energy there in those places, especially Bath as well. Like Bath,
mm-hmm.
Bath famous for the baths itself, right. The pools of the olden days, but a lot of very kind of intelligent, very advanced beings have passed over there over the last few hundreds of years, really, like very kind of interesting souls, but they seem to kind of culminate in these particular places. So, it wouldn't surprise me that he sent you there. So, So how did that experience change you when you visited those places? Was it essentially part of a personal transformation, or was it about finding about yourself, I suppose?
It was a verification of so much. It was, when we got to places and we had these deja vu experiences. For instance, we went into Bath Abbey, and there I had a deja vu experience, or I don't know what to call it other than that, in which I just knew some facts about that Richard II, for instance, had stopped in there on his way somewhere, that he had been there. Another man in the group became aware that a woman he had loved in a past life had actually thrown herself from the bell tower and had committed suicide there. He was fairly upset at the memory. It was the intensity of the feelings was huge. It was so real. It was undeniable. So it was a very powerful experience.
It sounds incredible. Those kind of situations, those experiences really just, I know they do stay with you for years, but also just being part of that exciting journey. So it'd be interesting to think, okay, what does Ramoth intend for you and the rest of his students at this point in life? Like, are you just going with that particular entity's flow, or do you have a particular goal about ways in which you want to develop or learn, or, is there like a lesson plan essentially?
That they were actually within the group, that small group, there were two of us who were quite capable of writing, were trained writers. And our group has, it's not that we've split up from each other or anything. It's just that we've moved on in different directions, and we don't live close by one another the way we did at one time. And we don't get together as a group anymore, although I maintain contact with the other members of the group. But way back in the 1990s, Ramoth told me that there was a book that I would write, and that I would know when the time came to write it. And I actually woke up one morning with no intention of writing a book, and just went to my computer and began writing Where the Spirit Led, which is the book. You see it behind me, perhaps.
Yeah, beautiful cover, by the way.
Yeah, it is. I think the publisher did a very good job. But anyway, I've known that this book was in the offing. I just didn't know when I would write it. Then the time came, and I got it written in a period of about 6 weeks. I sent it out to about 6 publishers in the United States, who immediately rejected it. But Ramoth said, no, there's a publisher in the UK. You need to find that publisher. And so I found Collective Inc. and submitted the book to them, and within 2 weeks, I had a contract. So once again, Ramoth knew exactly what he was doing. And he tells me that I do have one more book for him. Now, I continue to write. I write poetry. Since the beginning of the year, we're in 2025 now, I've completed a novel. I'm shopping it around right now, but of course, getting a novel published is a little bit like buying a lottery ticket. You have one chance in thousands. So I'm hopeful, but not overly confident. But yes, I do have another book to write for Ramoth, and he tells me that it's going to have something to do with the second coming, or that event that many people refer to as the second coming. And I'm sure once it occurs, other people will refer to it as something else.
In your belief, if it's okay to ask, in your belief, like what form would that take?
I know a little bit about it. I know that it will occur within this century, according to Ramoth. The exact day he either can't give or thinks it's better not to give. The Christ energy will return to Earth and will appear in many places at the same time. In other words, will manifest in human form. There will be a person, I'm told it will be a male. I'm told that it will be a person of indeterminable race who appears to be maybe a mixture of all the races. And he'll be able to appear in many places at the same time. His main purpose is he will, as he did before, he'll appear mostly among the poor people, the people who feel hopeless and helpless. He is not likely to seek out the powerful, the famous heads of state. It's more likely that he'll just gather a group of people around him and talk and change their lives. And so that's about all I know about it so far.
No, that's fascinating. No, I'm just curious because I was originally quite religious when I grew up, and through a number of different experiences, I stepped away from the religion that I was part of at the time, because my first-hand experiences didn't quite align for that belief system. But I've always been curious to learn about other beliefs ever since I've left it. So it's almost like now I'm on the outside studying a number of others, basically, other people who, channel this kind of Christ energy, as people tend to refer to it as, or learning about Buddhism as well, or Hinduism, or different forms of belief that connect with, they believe higher energies of sorts. So I always find this kind of stuff fascinating. So I sort of almost kind of feel like a positive vibration coming from you anyway, just speaking from you though, so I can tell it's coming from somewhere, a good place, as I say. So I look forward to what happens next for you. So, and if it also kind of adds to your situation, because you say that at one point you felt just ready, it was just out of the blue, you're ready to write this book, and it all just came out. And weirdly, a similar thing happened to me, because I've never been a writer. I'm actually a graphic designer by trade. I've never been a great writer, but I've had this story inside from a very personal, quite horrific experience, quite frankly, which I won't go into too much detail here, though. But long story short, it came to a point where I was finally ready to tell my story, because previously I was quite scared to talk about it to the world, because I was worried about judgment from my work or my friends or family, and these kind of things were seen as evil, or this, whatever it may be. But eventually I was ready to tell the story, and I don't know what happened, but over the period of a couple of weeks, I just knew how to write. And this whole book just came out, and then I spent like a month just fixing all the numerous spelling errors, because I was typing so frantically. Speaking to a number of different authors from this range, or at least beginning to speak to them, it seems to be like they seem to have like a calling at just the right point where they're ready to release their thing into the world. So I wonder if there might be a different energy that connects all of us for different reasons, really, or maybe we could be connecting to the same thing. Who knows?
Yes. Well, what I believe you're describing when you wrote your account is channeling. And Ramoth insists that most people channel from time to time, that they receive information. Many times we just attribute it to intuition, but that it's actually being placed in our heads by our spirit guide, or by whomever, but someone disincarnate who speaks through us. I had a wonderful experience in 1999, early 1999. I went to, and there's a chapter about this in Where the Spirit Led. I went to see the movie Shakespeare in Love, and
good film.
Yeah, and it was getting good reviews, and I've always been a fan of Shakespeare, not a scholar, but a fan of Shakespeare. And so I was by myself, something I don't normally do. I seldom go to a movie alone, and this is the only movie I ever got up and walked out on. Once the film began, I became increasingly uncomfortable, and until I had to leave. And when I got in my car, there were words going through my head. Pick up the pen, I was told. Pick up the pen. And I went home, picked up the pen, and I wrote a soliloquy in Elizabethan iambic pentameter. And the result of it was a 2-act play titled Shakespeare's Latest Play, in which William Shakespeare is the protagonist, and he's writing the play Richard II. I wrote the play entirely, as I said, in Elizabethan iambic pentameter, something that, well, I could write iambic pentameter. I am a poet. Elizabethan language is certainly not it's not the English that I speak, but it came to me very naturally. I wrote an entire 2-act play, over 1,900 lines of iambic pentameter, in a month. And I was channeling.
That's impressive, I have to say.
Every line of it. Almost every line was channeled. And I was very much aware of whom I was channeling from. And Ramoth confirmed that. I was actually channeling from William Shakespeare. Now, in the 1590s, I was an orphan boy in London. Various people were good to me and kept me alive. One of those people was actually William Shakespeare. And during the time that I was channeling the play, Ramoth told me, you're likely to have memories from Shakespeare's life, because he is tightly connected with you right now. And I did. I came away knowing a few things about William Shakespeare. One anecdote is you're probably aware that when Shakespeare died, Ben Jonson wrote a poem about him in which he said that Shakespeare knew, small Latin and less Greek. Well, I came to learn that, and I don't know if it bothers people on your side of the Atlantic, but on my side, college professors are always saying, well, if Johnson and Shakespeare were friends, why did he, and if he's writing a poem in praise of him after he died, why does he make such a critical statement? Turns out Shakespeare himself was the author of that line, that he went around and would try to disarm people by saying something like, well, I know little Latin and less Greek, and then he would lay something very heavy on them. And so it turns out that Ben Jonson was actually making a joke on something that Shakespeare was well known to have said among his friends.
God, that is absolutely incredible. I kind of wonder how this really works, because I know I've heard of stories of where almost like posthumous messages, really, though. So past death, people just leaving an additional message with somebody through a willing channel, or almost unwilling sometimes, just receiving a message at just the right time. It could be for reassurance of a loved one that has passed, or, oh, by the way, that book that I never quite finished, here's the last chapter out of there. And have you ever read a book called The Blue Island before?
No, I have not.
That's a wonderful book, because it's something that my friend recommended, Christine. Basically, it's written by somebody called William T. Stead, and it starts off during the Titanic disaster. So William T. Stead actually died on the Titanic, and through this experience, he was transferred to a place he describes as the Blue Island. So it's like an intermediary point between life and death, where he immediately was assigned a role to help those who were still dying during the disaster. Sounds quite horrific, I know. And to help them, to reassure them and just have a purpose there. And basically, the Blue Island itself is a channeled book. About sort of 70% of the book is a channeled story, channeled from William T. Stead himself. The idea of that is incredible, and I can't imagine the amount of energy that would have taken to focus for long enough to be able to do that. But apparently his mission was from the other side, as he did in his life, because he was a writer in life as well, from the other side, to detail what he saw and what he's been experiencing, and try to explain what the Blue Island is and what happens during quite dramatic and terrible events. And that book, I mean, I had goosebumps from start to finish for that book. It's such a surreal experience. And I was at a point thinking, yeah, this almost seems too good to be true, but it goes into so much granular detail. It's wild. So I mean, I also recommend a quick read of that, really. But I see a lot of similarities in your book as I'm going through it as well, understanding kind of, well, there are these kind of greater entities also that step into people still into the living, who are there just to spread a bit of meaning and a bit of useful, sometimes even life-saving messages. Mm-hmm. So it's an incredible thing. One experience we spoke about on the channel recently as well, something I experienced firsthand myself, was a friend of mine channeled what introduced itself as ISIS. So again, this isn't somebody unwillingly just receiving messages. This is somebody actively going out to seek things as well, which I don't know whether that's risky or not, because you don't know what could ultimately step in. But I had this otherworldly experience where I felt the whole room just shift. The energies just dropped, and kind of gravity dropped as well. I felt like I was in the presence of something quite vast. But he just started speaking this ancient language. I assumed it was Egyptian, but it sounded like almost like Coptic kind of sounding. But I don't know how I knew that, which also led me to doubt myself. Like, was I just trying to fill in the gaps with information where there weren't any? But he spoke for about 20 minutes as I asked it a few kind of very standard questions. But the force of energy of this thing was just like tremendous, really. So that was my first time experiencing a channeled something out of the blue, and I very much know that these things can and do happen.
Yeah, and I think it happens probably more commonly than the average person realizes, because the average person doesn't believe in it, but it does happen, and when it occurs, if you're writing something, it's the easiest thing you ever wrote. You know,
yes.
Shakespeare's latest play should have been the most difficult thing I've ever written, because it wasn't even written in the language that I normally speak. But it was as easy to write as anything I've ever written, and was just a transcendent experience. It was an amazing experience. I was teaching at the time, and I was so enthralled to be doing this that I put off essay assignments and things like that, because I just didn't have time to to fret with the students. I finally, once I finished the play, then I got caught up, and I don't think the students suffered any for it. But yeah, it was. I mean, it's really it's just something. It like it grabs you by the scuff of the neck and just sort of makes you do it, and it's fun.
No, it's incredible. I kind of wonder. I suppose like the profound question I'd need to ask you is like what is the purpose of Where the Spirit Led? Like, does Where the Spirit Led have a mission ultimately? What is Ramoth's mission through this book?
Yes, it does, and it is it's actually to prepare people for the changes that are about to come. They will happen. Books like Where the Spirit Led are helpful. I'm certainly, not the only person writing such books. And some of them actually have come from the medical and scientific community. For instance, Dr. Brian Weiss is an American psychiatrist who did not believe in reincarnation until one of his patients began talking about her own past lives. That developed into a book called Many Lives, Many Masters. And since then, and that was way back, maybe in the 70s or so. And Dr. Weiss has written a number of books since then because he's continued this study. That's important because it's preparing people for a truth that is about to hit them. Because, when that Christ energy comes back, then you will find that it does discuss reincarnation, because reincarnation is a simple fact and should have been a part of Christianity from the very beginning, and actually was a part of Christianity at the very beginning, which is actually, in a roundabout way, which is why the legends of King Arthur have persisted for so many centuries. I'll tell you what the connection is. Mary Magdalene and Joseph of Arimathea came to England. They settled in Glastonbury. The earliest Christian settlement, or the earliest monastery or something of that nature, is actually in Glastonbury, as you're probably aware. She had with her the Holy Grail, which eventually passed to Arthur, which he had his knights hide because of a Druid uprising that was going on. And part of her message was reincarnation. When Arthur had it's part of the legend that the Pope sent an envoy to Arthur. Arthur sent the Pope's representative's head back to the Pope. You'd think he could have just said no, thank you, but he made a stronger statement than that. Well, Arthur, according to Ramoth, actually wanted to invade the European continent. He wanted to displace the Pope and put a new Pope of his own choosing there, because Christianity had removed the concept of reincarnation. But you see, he had learned his Christianity from Mary Magdalene and Joseph of Arimathea, people who actually were followers of Christ and heard what he had to say. And so to people in Arthur's circle, reincarnation was a part of Christianity.
That's fascinating to me, because Part of the reasons why I didn't agree with it back when I was younger was for that reason, really, because I had memories of a past life. I had an out-of-body experience. All of those were kind of null and void in their experiences and were seen as quite bad, but I couldn't deny, because I wasn't dealing with belief at that point. I was dealing with first-hand experience, so that's part of the battle between a skeptic and experiencer. Is one is dealing with belief, one is dealing with fact, and just observable fact.
Ramoth has pointed out that the difference between faith and knowledge is huge, because no matter how much faith you have, there's always a little bit of doubt. But once you have knowledge, you have knowledge. And that's the wonderful thing that's the great gift that Ramoth has given me. He has absolutely convinced me that there is truth that you don't have to have faith in. It just simply exists. God is. He made the universe. Man made religion, and everything man has ever made has had flaws.
That's a realization I came to a number of years ago, and I still have a lot of respect for religions. I certainly do, though. But I realized you can be good without it, but also freer and more explorative of the universe once you do kind of grow beyond the bounds of that. And I've learned a tremendous amount about myself and the universe since I've been exploring, as I have done through this podcast, really.
Ramoth says that if we could take the best from every one of the world's religions and put the best aspects of all of the religions together, then we would have a very, very valid religion that could be global. And maybe that can happen in the future. Or maybe, if people are truly spiritual, then they don't really need to be religious. I would suspect that the people who are considered the great religious leaders, the founders of the world's religions, well, what was their religion? I don't think they had one. I think they had a direct connection to God. They were spiritual, and religions grew up around those people and their teachings.
That's a narrative that I've heard quite a few times. So I'm kind of glad you said that, really, because it does seem like that at some point in history there was a more purer point and purer understanding of our connections to the universe and how we access and communicate with more knowledgeable beings, I suppose. But at some points they seem to be in this manufacturing and recreation of those concepts in a way that was a bit more kind of outlined and constrained. And I don't know if that's part of my particular journey, whether I've lived in a life before where I was quite religious and then realized actually I wasn't sure whether I achieved what I wanted to achieve at the end of that life. And coming into this life, I was kind of at a point of saying, okay, now it's big time to question now. And I had this crazy experience, but not all of us have transformative experiences and it's hard for them to see outside of what they've been brought up in, and I get that too. I completely get that. I try to be respectful of people who are still religious nowadays, because I don't know what they're going through, and everybody believes in their own thing for their own reasons, so I can't judge that. But it's hard to unknow what you know. Yeah, I mean that's quite an exciting story in itself. There's one particular note I wrote down whilst I was reading a book was something positive about the students versus victims philosophy. I think that's quite an interesting way of almost reframing challenges, basically, there. Would you mind telling me a bit more about that?
Yeah, according to Ramoth, we could divide two categories. Either you are a student or you're a victim. They don't seem to be opposite categories, but really they are. A student of life is someone who pays attention to everything that goes on, learns the lessons from the challenges that we face, because all of us face them, learns the lessons from the mistakes that we make, because once again, all of us make mistakes, and used properly, mistakes can be our greatest teachers.
Yes.
So a student of life is continually growing, changing, evolving into a wiser person because he's learning his lessons. A victim of life is someone who is likely to make the same mistake repeatedly and suffer the same consequences repeatedly without learning the lesson. Yvonne used to have group meetings, and Ramoth would frequently begin each meeting with some sort of pithy statement. And one that he relied on frequently was, the purpose of life is to grow and to learn. I had actually concluded long before I met Ramoth that if life had any purpose at all, it was to learn. So I readily picked up that idea when Ramoth said it. And it makes so much sense. I've been a better student of life since I met him. My life has been more successful since I met him. I've been happier since I met him. And I feel that I am a much more mature person than I was when I first walked into that little room in 1997.
No, good for you. I mean, you embrace something quite profound, really, and have used it to the advantage of yourself, really, but in a way that helps other people, because you're spreading that message of, I suppose, reframing our existence on this earth. Because I think the last episode I was speaking to Penny, as a medium friend of mine, as a message from my guide at the time that simply said, the best learning is done in the dark. And it's ultimately, in your darkest moments, you can kind of piss and moan, basically. You can just complain. And admittedly, I have done much of my life, actually. I've kind of, we'll have a bit of a tantrum, as we say in the UK, a bit of a wobbly. Eventually, it's fortunate for yourself, or at least a better place for yourself, to take a step back and go, okay, what can I learn from the situation? And there's that phrase people say about finding the silver lining in a certain situation, and that rings true to so many situations. What can I learn from this? What energy can I reframe and redistribute into something positive? And that leads to the power of creation, really. So to create good from bad is another kind of wonderful thing that you can do. So it's all comes down to the mindset of that individual, really. So that the mind is matter, as one mind affects reality, as we've discussed many times on this podcast. So just kind of rounding up this conversation, really, I was going to finish on a bit of a profound question, really, and it's something I'm going to ask all the authors from this book series. What do you think the paranormal is?
The paranormal is reality. It is something that we haven't well defined yet, something that we don't understand yet. But I believe that all things that are considered miraculous are actually a part of nature, things that may well be understood at some point in the future. The laying on of hands and the healing of the sick, or the calling Lazarus from the dead, walking on water, disappearing. I think these are all a part of physics, but a part of physics that we haven't found yet. And hopefully we will. And when that happens, we will certainly have evolved as a species. We will be greater masters of the universe than we are now.
Yeah, I think I'd applaud that. That's very well said. Yeah, because it's even in our even the theme tune for this podcast. I don't know if you've heard our theme tune. I actually wrote it channeling something, so there are little Easter eggs in there that reference certain learnings, let's just say. But there's one particular part of it that simply says the paranormal is just future normal. It's something we have yet to understand. Yeah. So yeah, so it's like the creation of fire a long time ago was. You think back in the days of old, where what was the name of it? Was it Prometheus who stole the fire from the gods? Back then, like, only the gods could make fire. But today, what do we have? The internal combustion engine. But we have different ways of forming flames. And but yeah, a long time ago, that was seen as magic, though. So what's to say that, I don't know, levitating objects or things that we would describe as, say, poltergeist activities couldn't be explained 100 years from now, as our understanding of the universe has and is growing. But also our technology, the ways that we can measure and record certain things, is also kind of extending in its reach. So yeah, that's very well said. So yeah, thank you for that. One thing I was going to ask you is where can people read your book at the moment?
Oh yeah, well it is in bookstores, and I believe it has just very recently been released on Kindle, but you can order it from Amazon and probably from other sources, but one of the easiest things to do is simply go to Amazon, put in Where the Spirit Led, or my name, Brad Burkholder. It should take you to it, and then you would have a choice of having it as a print book or something to be loaded onto Kindle.
It's amazing how many devices you can read books on nowadays. It's quite profound. I know someone that reads books on their fridge. I mean, get your head around that. It's just because it's a bigger screen and they don't have very good eyesight. I mean, if it works, it works. So yeah, but it's what I love about the Paranormal Perspective book series. They're very kind of from the heart. And that's what's so interesting about them, because I wrote my book and I thought, when I wrote it, I thought, is it a good enough story? Is anyone going to take it on or take it seriously? But I thought, okay, at least I just wrote the book. but it was completely from the heart. It was an outpouring of it, and I was lucky enough to obviously join with a publisher later down the line, and then I realised that there are other authors who have a similar level of love that they're putting into the story, and it's not just simply a book, it's about a bigger conversation. That's what I find so fascinating. It's not just trying to tell you what to believe and what to think. Of course, it's up to you to decide, though, but it's presenting you with something quite profound and letting you ask the questions about life. And yeah, I think people reading your book might begin to question their own experiences in quite the grounded way that you've written yours. So yeah, I'm looking forward to reading the rest of the book once my busy life lets me to read the rest of it, though. So I'm quite energized now, and I'll make sure I'll enjoy the rest of it very soon. So yeah, thank you, Brad, for being here, and I'd love to have you back again if you'd like to one day.
I'd love to come back. I would love to. And thank you for having me. It's really been my pleasure.
Yeah, I've had so many people from the US come over recently. It's just nice to hear another friendly voice. And thank you to Ramoth as well. And if they have any further messages to share, then please do. And long may you keep sharing those learnings and connecting and trying to do the good that you can do in life.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you all, and good night.
Good night.
Ciao for now. Bye-bye.
Choice, sharing dreams and blowing off steam. We'll lend you a hand, we'll let you stand, sharing stories about the unknown. Paranormal perspectives, we're here to inspect it. I'm a small, not a medium. Let us escape from this tedium, learning from each other, breaking barriers, a message of hope, birthed from the unknown. Who you gonna call? I'm not a ghostbuster, no proton packs, just crossing streams of knowledge. It's not so scary when things get hairy. It's not the paranormal, just future normal. Breaking barriers, no longer the carrier, releasing the fear and replacing it with knowledge. Understanding each other, we uncover a whole new point of view within you. Paranormal perspectives, we're here to inspect it. I'm a small, not a medium. Let us escape from this tedium, learning from each other, breaking barriers, a message of hope, birthed from the unknown. The only stream we need to cross is the platforms to get the message across. Knowing each other, sister to brother. No ghost or spirit or demon will ever get the better of this medium. Paranormal perspectives, we're here to inspect it. I'm a small, not a medium. Let us escape from this tedium, learning from each other, breaking barriers, a message of hope, birthed from the